Welcome back. It's great to have you with us. We are live here for our special coverage of the election results as they sort of started to trickle in, Shahan. There's more of a downpour happening at the moment. We're seeing that leaderboard there change thick and fast. It's 20-3. We've just come out of that IEC briefing and plenty to discuss there.
Yeah, lots of parties will react to what the IEC has said. If you are just joining us, there will be a soft audit they're calling in certain areas where parties have actually raised concerns about the voting process. But Aldrin Sampear is standing by on the rock, on the floor. He's actually getting more reaction from those political parties. Aldrin?
Well, we're trying to get reaction from the different political parties, but just taking into consideration there what the IEC had to say about the number of arrests as well. We are running with 20 people arrested, at least the confirmation that we got from the IEC official in KZN. Yet the number that we got here from the IEC is that only 4 people have been arrested. And I guess this then does start this whole debate around whether indeed it is possible to vote more than once. We know that it is a crime, but the IEC has been emphasizing and arguing that as far as they are concerned, their systems are tight enough to ensure that nobody breached the system and tried to vote more than once. But some of the allegations, as well as the concerns that we got from different political parties, is that people have been able to vote more than once. Some even saying that some people have been able to vote multiple times. Jimmy Manye from the ATM, the policy head of that party, has indicated on Twitter that considering all the breaches that have been indicated by the IEC itself, or allegations of the breaches, as well as the evidence that they've received from different people, they believe that there should be a rerun of the elections. But speaking to the Commissioner now, just immediately after this press briefing, one of the questions that I asked was the question around whether there is a possibility of a rerun, and whether indeed, now that they've mentioned that there will be the soft audit as well as an investigation into the indelible ink that has been supplied by the South African company, whether there has been some breaches over there. And we heard now from the ATM saying that there could be a possibility for a rerun of the elections, but the IEC is saying that they don't think that there should be a rerun of the elections. Let me see, here is the chairperson of the EFF. Let me just quickly get some reaction from him. Thank you so much for joining us, Advocate Dali Mpofu. What's your take on what the Commission had to say right now? There have been these accusations, some people saying that other people have been able to vote more than once.
Yes, no, look, that is now conclusively proven that many people were able to vote more than once. When I received reports like this in the Eastern Cape yesterday, I actually asked our guys to go and test the system. And I was speaking to somebody from the DA later when I arrived here, before the closing, and I asked them to do the same thing, and I think they did it in Soweto. So this is not, I don't know conclusively, but the person that I've spoken to said actually the tester was able to vote 3 times. So it's crazy. It means someone could have voted 10 times for all you care.
Does this mean that somebody committed a crime that you know of?
No, of course, it's a crime. I mean, that's electoral fraud by any stretch of the imagination. So anybody who is involved in that should be prosecuted. That's the one thing. But as far as it affects the results are concerned, I was just saying to your colleague, wearing my hat as an electoral lawyer, the issue in electoral law is materiality. So if it's material, the fraud, it's widespread and material, then obviously we're in a dangerous zone. If the IEC is able to demonstrate that it's not material, yes, it has happened, there's no doubt about that, but it would not have affected the overall result, then of course it will be fine.
But here's the thing about that, is that how do you know whether somebody has voted more than once if there is no allegation or complaint made?
No, well, there are many ways. Some of them will be painful. I mean, if, for example, what they call the zip, because that's where the problem, these things are all related. Remember, there are checks and balances. One of the checks and balances is the so-called zip, which is the scanner. In most places, it was not working, and that was a problem on its own. The second check and balance, which we used to have, if you remember, on the green ID book, is that the stamp. Now you can't stamp the card, yeah. So that's another check and balance that is gone. And then the third check and balance is the ink. And now the ink, we've had all the problems with the ink, that it's not really indelible as it is supposed to be. So that seems to be a problem, because if all the checks and balances have loopholes, then obviously there's a multiplier effect, an ability to defraud the system. And it looks like maybe certain parties were able to work out ways around the system.
What recourse is it that the EFF would like to see?
Well, we have written to the IEC. We've made certain proposals as to what should be done. They have accepted some of our proposals. So we'll wait and see. If, as I say, ultimately the question is, if the IEC cannot dodge that question, they're going to have to come and say, yes, there was fraud, because that's indisputable. But then they must pronounce on the materiality thereof. Because you can imagine, and even this question of materiality is not as simple as I'm saying it, because, it depends. In one, it might be in Gauteng, as you know, there's a whole big contest. It might well be that the difference between Party A and Party B is 200 votes. Yeah. So materiality also depends on the context. I mean, we won a ward in the Northwest in the by-election by 11 votes. So materiality is a moving target on its own. Yeah.
And this is a very important issue. But then, how do you ensure that the entire results that the IEC receives, and even the results that are currently beamed on the screen right now, are results that are not tainted by this possibility of people double voting?
It's difficult, Aldrin. It's very difficult because it gets compounded. For example, we know that there's a low turnout, so it's going to be one of the ways. For example, if there was a high turnout, one of the ways could be if we suddenly have 30 million voters when we know that we have 26 million registered voters. But that's unlikely to happen because you have a low turnout. So the repeat offenders would still be drowned in the system. So hopefully the IEC has got mechanisms.
Finally, 45% of the votes that have been tallied so far. Do you believe at all at this point, considering the information that we received from the IEC, considering the information that you received from your party agents as well, that this election can be declared free, fair, and most importantly, credible?
No, I can't say that as yet, because remember, the freeness of the election really relates to like violence, people being stopped. It doesn't look like there was widespread problems with that kind of thing. So the election, you can say at face value, was free. But whether it was fair in the sense that each person got one vote as it is supposed to be, it's too early to tell. And it hinges around this question of materiality of the fraud that we know did happen there.
Okay, then thank you so much. Chairperson of the EFF, they're speaking about some of the concerns that the party has, also taking into consideration the press briefing that we had earlier on from the IEC that has now indicated that they will have a soft order to look into some of these numbers and try to track whether there are people or more people who have tried to vote more than once. And as we've indicated before, that in KwaZulu-Natal we are hearing that about 20 people have been arrested, while the IEC, the only information that they have at the moment is that only 4 people have been arrested. Very importantly as well, Michelle and Shahan, that we need to stress is that the prosecution of this will also be very important. The information that the prosecutor would be able to get from the IEC on whether these suspects, whether it's the 4 or whether it's the 20, did indeed double vote. But also taking into consideration what the IEC is saying is that our systems are tight. How tight are those systems when the police already have suspicions that people may have voted more than once?
Yeah, there's so many questions that people are posing to the IEC, Aldrin, and they've actually dodged some of those questions, especially when it comes to the number of people arrested in KwaZulu-Natal. We will try to get confirmation from police because they are getting that information from the SAPS. Our team is working on getting those final indication as to exactly how many people have been arrested for